Happy New Year! Okay, so sorry for deserting you at the end of last year. Life got hectic. But to let you know, I ended up reading 200 books last year, and I'm just now making my way back to you to tell you the top 10 of the 200. In another video, you'll see the next 11 to 19 to round up to about 20, but here is a top 10 in the order that I read them. So not necessarily in terms of favorites, okay? Most of these are between 4 and 5 stars and for different reasons. Some of it is for the writing, for the themes, for the imagery, etc. Anyways, here is book number one. Book number one is Headshot by Rita Bullwinkel. And this was published in 2024. It's a fiction book. It's a debut. It is a gorgeous literary debut. Sometimes I am so in awe of people who come out the gate swinging, like they're right, like they've been doing this. And most likely they have been doing this for a while, but to think this is your first major published novel, it's amazing. So this book is about boxing, women who do boxing, young girls actually, and not about that. This book had one of the most interesting ways to bounce between perspectives. So it follows basically a tournament. If you've ever played any sport that does round of 16, so you know it's like a knockout situation. So it follows 16 different girls, and it basically follows each girl as they're put up together to fight. So it bounces between perspectives, but what it also does that's really cool is it bounced between timelines, so past and present. So you literally saw present them in, you know, how they were considering their fight, what their families were doing, and then you saw a little bit about their background, and then you saw how they ended up in the future. So this was actually the first book I saw that jumped time like that, and it worked really well. Also, I thought this was a really great way to show multiple personalities without, how do I say it, like the author actually was able to give you full character portraits without taking up the entire book, and I think that was skill. So anyways, this book was really beautiful, and it was a lot about psychology as well, like what the girls were thinking, how it ended up, you know, their competitiveness. They had sisters who were competing, they had friends who were competing, stuff like that, girls who were the only girl in their family and with brother boxers and stuff like that. And it was just a book about strength, especially not just of grown women but of teenage girls, and I just found it extremely fascinating. I also think that it's because it's not a sport that is, I guess, typically popular with women, that it might be a book that men, if they're not squeamish, can enjoy as well. So anyways, this was a 4 out of 5 stars for me, and I would recommend it, especially if you enjoy books that are more than just they examine the human condition without being very, I don't know, played out. Okay, so the second of my top 10 of 2025 is a fiction novel by a Jamaican author called Ishi Robinson. The book is titled Sweetness in the Skin. It was published in 2024, and this is basically a coming of age book. It explores themes of found family, mother-daughter relationships, also classism. So basically, it follows this girl, Pumpkin is her name. That's not her birth name, but you know, everybody in Jamaica has a nickname, especially a family pet name. And so she basically has a dream, you know, and she's following this dream. And her mother is her biggest op. Unfortunately, this happens a lot. And she's growing up and she's learning about her community. She's from the inner city. And one of the things I really appreciated about this book is that it explored topics that are real and challenging to discuss without feeling like a caricature. And she did it in a way that didn't, especially for an author that no longer lives here. Sometimes it feels nostalgic to the point of being stuck, like it's an image of the country that the author had when they left. Usually they leave when they're teenagers and it's just stuck in that place. And even though this book is from a teenage perspective, it still felt fresh. She captured the many Jamaican isms in it without it feeling like stereotypical and insulting. So I really appreciated that. And I actually bought this book for my mother for Christmas. because I found, if you've ever had, not me personally, my mother is not my biggest up, but if you grew up with strained parental relationships, or maybe you grow with your granny, that happens a lot. Your granny take care of you because your mother maybe had you young, stuff like that. You might find connections with this, or if you are chasing a dream that really you take ownership of, especially at a young age, right? So she was actually trying to study to go abroad without spoiling it, right? But imagine you come from a place where there's no money to do your exams and you have to find your way. So imagine what you have to do. Some kids in school, they sell things, sweetie, whatever, right? It's that kind of story without feeling like a skit. So I really, really, really liked this. I gave it 4 out of 5. And I think, it's the kind of book, as much as a teenager could relate to it, maybe some of the perspective and appreciation for the relationships won't come till you're older. And that's why I also think it works really well, is because it's going to speak to what teens are going through, but it's also, when you've come past that stage, it's gonna speak to an adult woman as well. So I thought, honestly, this is like the perfect Jamaican fairy tale. Okay, so the third book, again in order that I read it, not in terms of favoritism. My third out of top 10 of 2025 is How to Read a Book by Monica Wood. This came out in 2024 and I read it last year in 2025. It's both somehow cozy and a wild ride at the same time. So this was a blind read for me, meaning I went in without having, and I intentionally a lot of times do not read the blurb. I just pick up the book, because sometimes if I read the blurb, I don't want to read it, so I just don't bother. So this book, the title is what caught me, and then also kind of the cover. But essentially, this book is about a woman who went to prison, and she joins a book club in prison, and as she transitions out of prison, the book club helps her to with that transition out. And I thought that was really fascinating, because a lot of times, other than like popular media in a few years ago, like Orange is the New Black, we don't really get a lot of perspectives of women who were in prison. So that was really interesting. And she basically, for lack of a better word, is rehabilitated through her relationship with the other prisoners. So she leaves, but through this book club, she's still the leader of the book club, is from the outside, and she would go into the prison to be in the book club. So other prisoners have wild stories, and her story is pretty wild too, because she ends up having like a very straight-laced career coming back out of prison, and there's this whole thing about her family being ashamed of her, and what she did to go in prison, and her family being upstanding and her ending up in prison, and all of that is a whole thing. But basically, men are the problem, men are trash. Okay, you haven't heard me say that this year. That's my motto. Okay, yeah. Love men, but also hate them. Okay, sorry, hate is a strong word, but we kind of mean it. Okay, so essentially, this book was very surprising. I don't think going into this, even reading the blurb, you couldn't guess where it goes. Like, there was no way to know how this goes. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's the kind of book that takes you on a journey. And what I really love about it, men can ruin your life, but women can help you stand up. And this is one of those stories like that. Like, she never needed a man to like get back on her feet or whatever. If anything, he would have been her downfall all over again. So for that reason alone, this should get a read. But it's also, like I said, a really wild ride. And also, I don't want to spoil it, but basically, sometimes men are really the problem, because even when somebody seems to be helpful, why them always want to look you? Like, why they always can't just chill? But I'm gonna stop talking about that now. But that was a really good book. Okay, so number 4 in my top 10 of 2025 is called Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. This is a mystery, but you don't even know it's a mystery till you're in it. This is a book that I considered getting from my dad for Christmas, but I knew he wouldn't read it because he don't like to sit down one place. But if it was the kind of book I would get for my father to read, because if you like a show that's like, like House or Monk, or the type of show that it's a real mystery and you're so engrossed from like the first, like it's good TV. It's that kind of book. And it's so unassuming as well. So basically this father goes missing and the last person who was seen with him is his son that's on the autism spectrum, who's, I think he's in his late teens, maybe he's in his early 20s, but basically he's nonverbal. And it's complicated because they are trying to figure out where the dad is, and they're also trying not to get the son implicated. And it follows this whole thing about how much, not autonomy, but the word I'm looking for is like how capable is someone who has a disability. Like it's a whole conversation about disabilities and how people with disabilities are underestimated, and how they're questioned. And it's like, especially as they become adults, right, and parents want them to have independence, because we know a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum, they're brilliant people, right, but maybe they're just nonverbal, right? And so it follows this whole investigation. Police gets involved. The twins, the older siblings, so it's three siblings, and the twins, one is covering for him and the other one is just totally oblivious. And it follows, she's in college for music, and so there's a lot of like musicality infused in it. And that was really interesting to read, because when you read a novel, especially something that's like fiction, you don't, like, she's talking about music theory in between it, and it makes so much sense. And I love when a book is like simultaneously having a very strong plot but bringing you something else that you wouldn't even have guessed, even from reading the blurb. And so this book was one of the most surprising reads for me, in the sense that, again, this was a blind read for me, but going in, and so going in, I didn't expect too much, but I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by the depth of content. And like I said, especially because I don't really enjoy mystery, I was hooked. Like, I was in it, and I really liked the conversation about disabilities and what people can do, and especially in a place like when you live in a developing country and you think about some of the not technology, but some of the resources that are available to persons with disabilities. We don't have as much. You could see how horribly this could have gone if it happened in a developing country, and you can start to imagine those things. So this is one of those books that gives you another perspective on life while entertaining you the whole way through. All right, so this book is my number 4, I think, of my top 10 of 2025, and I actually have a physical one of this. I had to have it. I don't even know where I saw this first. I feel like, okay, so I don't really use Instagram. I do use Insta. I have one, but I don't use it to scroll. I use it to follow a lot of publishers and things like that. And I think I came across this book, and this is one of the most gorgeous cookbooks, and I've owned a few. This is one of the most gorgeous cookbooks I have ever seen. The design, the cover design, the foil, the typeface they chose, beautiful, especially inside the book. So the typeface is this nice soft brown. You know, black and white is standard for a reason, but there are other colors, and there are other colors that aren't as jarring and contrast well at the same time. And this, to me, the typeface, the lines, all of them are beautiful. I also think that the recipes are attainable. Now, that's a big thing for me in the scoring of cookbooks. There are cooks, sometimes you want a cookbook for razzle dazzle, and you want to wow and shock and awe, but sometimes you just want to cook something without breaking the bank, or without it taking 2 days in advance to prepare. And this is the book that does that, and it's all, call it homegrown recipes, right? So basically this book is a love letter to Marie's Caribbean identity and her family. She is a black British woman born to Jamaican parents. And one thing I love about a cookbook, it is going to have a table of contents. Hello, thank you for table of contents, and be able to search for exactly what it is you want. So here is Marie. Here is Marie, and in this book she intersperses the recipes with little anecdotes, little bits of history, and some stories about Jamaica and photos of Jamaica on the ground, and it doesn't give feed the children in Africa, right? It's giving I've been here, authentic. Here she is in the shop, right? If you go to any corner shop, right, this is what it looks like, right? And it's not giving woe is me, it's just giving authentic. Okay, now if you live in a place, we have Jamaicans all over. There is a joke that if you go to anywhere in the world, you're gonna find a Jamaican, okay? And this is true, and sometimes that means you don't have the local store that carries your jerk sauce, your hot pepper seasoning, your chicken seasoning, your all-purpose that are staples when you're at home. And she's telling you how to make all these things, right? Jerk marinade, jerk sauce. She's telling you how to do all these things. But my absolute green seasoning, which is mostly very popular in Eastern Caribbean, we use it here in like Jamaica, but not as popularly as like, you know, Trinidad, countries like those. Escovitch fish, stuff like that, right? You know, that pickle is, I just learned this. Sorry, I've been living over under a rock because I thought it was regular vinegar, but it makes sense that it's white wine vinegar that gives the bite that you get in Escovitch. Sorry, I never know that, okay? But one of the things that I absolutely love about this book, and there's something to be said, novelists do this and it gets annoying sometimes, where because somebody isn't from the place, you feel like you have to explain every striking piece of context, and it makes the story stall more than it makes it progress. For me, I think in this cookbook, and the analog to that is this illustrated index, but it doesn't stall the story at all. Because imagine you are married to a Jamaican, you know nothing about Jamaica, but you want to surprise them with a meal. They don't have rice and peas, they haven't had it, they haven't been able to go home in a year, and them can't cook rice and peas, and you know they yearn for some, or you know they yearn for some ackee or whatever it is, right? You want to surprise them. This is the kind of book that shows you, if you've never seen a piece of yam before, what yam look like. You can find it at the market, right? You can find sorrel at the market, and you can figure out the instructions based on this book to make it. So I think this is a really special book, and it's not just for people who don't live here. I actually think, for example, if you never grew up cooking, all right, let me tell you a good example of this. If you never grow up, if somebody always cooked for you, and Marie said this happened to her as well, where her parents would always cook and she would just eat and enjoy the food. And then as they started getting older, and you know, she realized, hey, unless somebody, my parents can't cook that Sunday dinner anymore, it falls to me. No, you have to learn. This is the kind of book that you pick up to learn without shame. You know, if I call nobody and ask them, sometimes the recipes are online, but you can't trust it. You have to test it 3 times. She did the testing for you. Look on those fried dumplings. Perfect. So anyways, I've talked a lot about this. I think it does deserve all the praise. I want to make up. Listen, and I keep saying this. Who is making roti? You know how long it takes to make roti? Who is making roti? But if you feel like you want to make roti, and she specifically says bust up shut roti, like like a Jamaican, right? That's a specific type. So this is what that process looked like, and I just love it. I love it. The illustrations, the pictures, everything. So that is all I want to say about, and it has every single course. It has beverages, curry, jerk jackfruit. It has vegan options, ital options. Incredible. 5 out of 5. All right, so this is book number 6 in my top 10 of 2025. This is a collection of short stories that is a 5 out of 5, a 10 out of 10. So if you live in Kingston, if you live in Jamaica, but especially Kingston, there is a story in here for you. And it's not a type of stories that are showing, not necessarily showing you a new perspective. It's more so, it feels like somebody wrote down people that we've seen before, right? It's written down the policeman who takes bribes and the one who refuses to take bribes. It's written down the angry motorist. It's written down the helper and the man cheating with the helper and the wife. And it's written down the classism and all of the things that we see in Jamaican society. It has it in here. And one of the most beautiful things about this, The book is called You Have to Harden Your Heart in Times Like These and Stories of Kingston. And it's written by Kim Robinson-Walcott and it's published by Blouse and Skirt Books, which is a local publisher led by Tanya Savage, I believe. And so these stories are literally Kingston. Like, and you know what I love about this book, this short collection? Anybody can pick this up because obviously some of the stories are less than a page, some of them are multiple pages. But what I love about this, especially for example, an aspiring writer, one day I hope that I can write a book. I hope I have time to sit down and write. It shows that it can really be this simple, right? It can really be as simple as observing what is in your everyday community and writing it down and capturing the dialogue and being straightforward about it. And there's beauty in that because literally there is somebody who has not been home in 20 years who's going to pick this up and immediately think of a scenario in their life that they experienced while living here. And look at the size of the book. It's not that long, right? You can read this if you want to get back into reading. This is the kind of book that can help you get back into it. And I also want to shout out, this was in my, extended top 20. It's Cousin. So these two are by the same publisher. This is a poetry collection. Some of Us Can Go Back Home by Yashika Graham. And so if you also want another short collection to read, this can be really good. So I just wanted to big up Miss Savage. You did your big one with these two last year. I bought them both at Calabash in May in 2025. And incredible. Like, I feel like this is the kind of book you want to keep, and when you just feel like you need a little entertainment, you're at home, you can read two stories out of the collection and you can go back, you can annotate, you can say why you really love this, you can share photos with family members, stuff like that of the story. So I love when something is done simply but effectively and just beautifully. So anybody who's been watching me at least since last year knows I've talked about this book before. So it's Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. I gave this a 4.25 out of 5. This is a romance, a contemporary romance, and it's about a violin that fell in love with a cello. Okay, now I actually think this is my favorite, one of my, and I mean of all time, favorite books. There is something very special about the way that the male character yearns not just for the girl but to literally play music with her. Like, he's like, very rarely can authors, sorry, helicopter, make you feel there's this tension, but you feel all right. So he's like, you feel him waiting for her to play their song together. He is watching her freestyle and he saves her playing. So the way she stutters over a note, he replays the music like that. And it's like a chase in multiple senses of the word. So he's chasing after her, obviously, but like romantically, but like to play with her. So throughout this whole thing, she's like, he keeps asking her to duet with him, and she's just like, nah, like, I don't want to, because he's supposedly famous, whatever. And she's like, just trying to keep her job, bro. They played an orchestra. He's like star boy, his seat is always there. And if you know anything about orchestra, it's like a succession. So they're, what they call chairs, from fourth chair, even beyond that, all the way up to first chair, who is like at the front. And so he's basically first chair, very hard on himself, a perfectionist. She's also a perfectionist, but nothing in her, she's basically an adopted child and her life has been tough, so she doesn't need him. She don't need a complication, and he just wants to play music with her. Like, he's attracted to her. But I thought what made this beautiful was the fact that he literally is just begging her to play music with him. So it's a yearning for me. Okay. And there's something about this that's very much a Christmas book. It ends in a Christmas scene. And you know how not Home Alone, Home Alone is a Christmas movie. You know, like how Die Hard, they keep arguing that it's a Christmas movie because of certain scenes in it. This, I would say, is the same. It's like, it's not thematically entirely a Christmas book, but for me, it's a Christmas book. And it just gives me the feels every time. I kid you not, I'm not embarrassed. I probably reread this book like twice last year, 2 or 3 times. Because I did the physical copy, I did audio, and you get something different each time. And the cover is giving what the book gives without being raunchy. So yeah, I really liked it. Okay, so number 8 in the order I read it of my top 10 of 2025 is The Mercy Step by Marcia Hutchinson. This is Jamaican British author. And this book I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now, we talk about coming of age from the classic Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid. Last year, I would have told you my 2020 in my 2024 top up about one called Kipling Plus by a Guyanese author. We would have looked at Jamaica Road in my top 20 of last year as well. So they are, coming of age stories about Sweetness in the Skin in this very same video. But all of those give us an adult perspective, or at least a young adult perspective. This book, I can tell you, and it's not really a spoiler, but this book is the child don't even reach high school yet, or just about reach high school by the end. And we get a whole, it feels like a quarter century worth of life in this book, okay? I have never read a story that gave me from birth like this. And it was done so well. The child is an infant without being infantilicized. Infantilicized, I think that's the word. Infanticide, infant. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. This story, again, the Windrush generation needs to pay for their crimes. The parents, I know they're trying to make it. I know they're going through extreme stress. Them never yet guess them leave one stress in a Jamaica, come to one next stress in a foreign. But listen, they need to get it together. And again, I think it's so funny that this and Jamaica Road are both written from the perspective of the children of Windrush parents, and just some of the damage, like emotional damage that they would have gone through from those parents. Mercy is the middle child of a whole bunch of kids. And we just watch her navigate that. We watch her navigate a dad who basically, honestly, is trash. And the mom is also trash. So if you want to talk about mother-daughter relationships, parent-child relationships in general, we get a really unique perspective on this. And I just loved the storytelling. Again, the Mercy Step it's symbolic. The title is apt. And it's also very Caribbean in a way. You know how Caribbean people love sit down on them veranda, upon them front step type thing. It's a similar situation. And I think this book deserves a special mention for giving us coming of age, which is done often, but giving it from such a it's just a fresh perspective, honestly. And I'm still in awe of the way that the author did this. And yeah. All right, so my penultimate favorite book of 2025 is in the order I read it, not in the order of ranking, is The Girls Who Grew Big by Leila Mottley. Now, people, you ever watch a movie and the opening scene is nothing like you've seen before? This book was like that. The opening scene is one of the best I've ever read. And you know how, okay, if they tell you, start your story strong, start it with a bang, whatever. Some people try to, and it comes out just like you're trying too hard. I knew, you look at the cover, it's a story about young girls who are pregnant, okay? So the cover has a clearly young girl because she's holding the phone with a pop socket, taking a selfie. You can't see her face. Her belly's out. She's in it's either a swimsuit or like a crop top and a bikini bottom. And first of all, I love the cover. I think it's obvious, but it's also very like a very artistic way to show that it's modern, because the pop socket right on the phone and the selfie. Instead of just like a pregnant young girl, you know what I mean? Like, it's showing the person is young without showing a face, anything like that, even the way she's dressed. So the cover is one thing, and then the opening, I won't even go into it, but just know that was the strongest opening I've read all year and one of the most memorable. And then the topic of conversation, and I say conversation because it's something that we need to talk about, right? Girls make mistakes, kids make mistakes, but black women and black girls, our mistakes are not allowed, right? And we have much further to climb back when we fall from grace. And I think this book talks about this so well. I also think this author, I was shocked. I looked her up. She's 23 at the point of publishing this. This girl is 23. This is not her first book. I immediately have to go back and read her first book. I only finished this late in the year last year. So she had another one, Night Crawling, which also had critical acclaim. But mighty, like, how are you writing this at 23? I think she's from like Compton, California, and I guess she's seen some things, but I just feel like the way that she wrote this is gorgeous and such an important conversation to have. Like, black girls don't get a lot of grace, and we see stories and we hear about it, and even other black women who are once black girls, when they get past a certain point, they don't give them grace. You know what I mean? You're used as a cautionary tale as opposed to being helped a lot of the time, and I just thought this was really brilliant. So it was from three different perspectives. One of the girls is even white, and we see a little bit of how race changes things. But I just thought this was gorgeous, and I want to go back and read her other book. And honestly, I feel like I'll read whatever she writes, just because if you can write about something so tenderly but also so seriously and critically at the same time, like, I want to see what else you can do at 23. Okay. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. Right. All right. And my final book, in order I read it. This book came out in 2025 November. I read this in December. I finished it just before the end of the year. I gave this 5 stars. It's An Academic Affair by Jodi McAlister. Now, this is an academic romance. If you don't know anything about academia, essentially jobs are very scarce. Jobs are scarce around the world, but basically, as much as there aren't that many people with PhDs, when you do a lot of studying and you come up with a PhD, basically, if you have 5 people graduating in the Department of History, for example, there are not 5 jobs. There are not 5 PhD lecturer jobs available, because what happens in the world of academia is you have this thing called tenure, which everybody strives to get. But basically, it means you're in your job till you die, okay? Because the idea is that you keep publishing research and you're at the top of your scholarly area, and so you become an authority, and so you deserve this spot, so they pay your salary for life, right? Now, these 2 people knew each other, and they're basically academic rivals through college, and there is this like tug of war between them, and this tension. Yeah. And so this book, that just gives you some background about the problems that we have, right? But there's a lot of tension between these people. And so what we end up with it's not even a marriage of convenience. It kind of is. But the way they end up doing it is really funny, because there's this thing in academia called the 2-body problem, where, again, I told you there aren't many jobs. But what happens is, if you're married and if you have to relocate, so let's say you live in Australia. This book is set in Australia, right? Australia is a big place. It's essentially a continent to itself. You are from Brisbane, and Perth is a completely different place, right? It's a large country. If you are relocating and you're married to somebody who is already in an academic job, or they're an academic, the hope is that the university can find a position for you. It's called a spousal hire. So basically that's what they did. But the way they got around to it wasn't even intentional, whatever, because they basically were competing for the same job. That tells you a little bit about it, but just know the whole story is a warm hug. It's a slow burn romance, so there is no going into this feeling like by page 50 they're doing the adult tango. Is nothing like that. Like, they're getting to know each other. The girl, they're having the respective families. One family likes the other person and one family doesn't, and so there are dynamics with that. And the whole thing is very, I want to say, stimulating, in the sense that it's not just fluffy. Like, I feel like this is so, it talks about, professional advancements and the sacrifices we have to make. It talks about, who makes a sacrifice. It talks about getting to know somebody and trust. It talks about your family and the sacrifices you make, siblings make, for the advancement of other siblings when your parents are not very good parents. And it was such a good book. And then you come to find out it's the first in a trilogy. Can't wait to read the others. I also feel like the other books are going to be characters that are kind of introduced, so we know who it's going to be about, but we don't know exactly how it's going to go yet. And so I just think that this book is was really surprising for me. Actually, I love a good romance, but I didn't expect it to talk so much about real things, and for that reason I really recommend it as more than just like a fluff love story, because you don't even get into the romance. It's, building, but you don't really actually get into it till way down the line. So that's, sums up my top 10, especially in terms of how I read them. So we had a mix of fiction, we had a mix of contemporary non. Did I have any non-fiction? I did. I had the cookbook, and I had, if you go into my extended, I had the poetry book. And I just feel like there's something there for everybody. And you had mystery, you had thriller, you had lots of things. I had a great time reading in 2025. I'm looking forward to maybe not as a prolific year this year as last year, because I have other things I need to do. But I don't know, I just really enjoy picking up books and reading them and talking about them. So I hope to go back to sharing my monthly recaps, even if they're not as produced as I'd like them to be. I just like really talking about books, and I don't want production to be the reason I don't do that. So what else did I want to say? I started saying something and I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, so let me know of any of these that I talked about, which ones. I really am genuinely curious to know which ones, if you've read them already or you really are interested in reading, both from this top 10 and the other video, which would be the 11 to 19, to round out the top 20. So let me know. I'm really curious, and I will see you at the end of January for January wrap up.